My name is Diana Boyd. I am from Chelsea, Oklahoma. Was born in Claremore. We moved to a little community called Bushy Head. It's where I did my first 4 years in school. And then Chelsea consolidated with Bushy Head, so we went to a larger school, and it was different being from a little 4-room school to a big school with a cafeteria and everything. It was a new learning experience. We had a cafeteria at both places now. By the time I got to high school in Chelsea, it was an open campus. We got to leave for lunch, walk downtown, and of course we sometimes lost our way back to school after lunch, but oh well. We would jump in a car and go to Spencer Creek, or just drive around and piddle the afternoon away. When I was in grade school at Bushy Head, you know, the teacher would come out and ring the bell at the end of recess, and it was always a big deal to be the first in line, you know, at the door to go in. And one time, teacher come out and rang the little handbell, and I was right up with the merry-go-round, which was the closest toy. And so I took off running as fast as my little short legs would carry me, and I turned and looked behind me, and I saw Donald Blair. He was about 7 foot tall back in grade school, really not. And that's all I could see was him coming up behind me. And next thing I knew, pow, into the brick wall. So I guess that's what I can say has always been wrong with me, so I do have an excuse. My father's name was John Roberts, and my mother was Shirley Salee Roberts. My grandmother was full blood, and my grandfather was a white man. And one of the sad parts about it is he did not allow Grandma to teach much of the traditions to the children, and couldn't speak Cherokee at home, because we used to go to my Aunt Pat's over in Little Kansas. And she had a big family too. And then there was one cousin that every time we would pull into the driveway, you could see him sprinting across the field. He didn't want anything to do with that family meetings and stuff. But we always had great meals, great fellowship. We usually played softball or just hung out in the yard, and always got Aunt Pat's homemade cinnamon rolls. Whatever we could come up with outside, you know, you didn't stay inside and listen to the adults talk. That was the saying, little ears have big pictures. And we would go down to the pasture and swing on the grapevines across the creek until my little sister broke the grapevine and we got in trouble. And those little sapling trees that were bent over, boy, you could crawl up on one of those, and whoever was down below pull it, man, you'd just ride for a while. That was a lot of fun. We just found stuff to do outside. You know, knew to get home whenever it started getting dark. And Daddy used to make games for us where he worked, and there was 2 or 3 games that had, you know, little metal bar with strings on it with washers on that, and you have to move this washer to this side, and it is possible, but I can't do it anymore. And there was another one. It was a flat metal piece, and it had a slot in it with a string through it, and had a big ring that went over it, and the 2 strings, or the string had 2 little marble things on the end, and you had to work that around to get that big ring off of and it was difficult, but it also was doable. We usually, whenever we did go swimming, it was over at Spencer Creek, or even out at Well, they used to, New Moon, right outside of Chelsea, it's a coal pit. Well, it was a coal pit. They've filled it in since. And learned how to swim at Spencer Creek. My Uncle Roy, thank you. Go out with on his shoulders, and he'd get out about his neck level or so and toss you off until you either sink or drown, or swim or drown. So yeah, I learned how to dog paddle real quick. As a kid, we would go camping with my aunt and uncle. Fish then, and we'd camp anywhere along a riverbank, underneath railroad trestle or wherever. We got into some mischief. Nothing real bad. Other than climbing up in the hayloft and jumping out when they told us not to. But little sister would open up the trap doors in the barn, and those, boards are like 2 foot across, and she'd take off running across that, and don't even get me close to it. I can't do that. We had a little store that was about 4 miles from the house. It was called Little Joe's Grocery, and it's right where the totem pole sits. But yeah, we used to go to the totem pole and play for hours, ride our bikes or walk. Back then it was open and you could get all the way to the top of it if you was strong enough and had guts enough to get up there and look out them little holes. But it was really worth it. Had lots of fun. It's right outside of Foyle on 28A Highway.
Did your mom can? Did you ever help her?
Yes, she canned all the time. We survived the winter well. I remember spending whole days in the kitchen with 2 or 3 pressure cookers going, and the kitchen would be so hot because we didn't have an air conditioner back then. And Granny'd be one side and Mom would be on the other, and one of us girls would be in between all the time, and canning and holding them hot jars. And
wow.
But it was sure worth the effort in the wintertime. He'd give you a good talking to, and that look with the knots here turned down at you, and it made you feel real bad. But Mama's usually the one that had the switch, and I got my share of them plenty of times.
Did you ever have to go get your own switch?
Oh yeah, many a time. My granny, yes, you go cut me a switch. And if you got one of the little bitty puny switches, yep, she'd go cut it then. We had lots of fun at growing up as a kid and learning lessons well, learning lessons of life.